Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing window of Nexus Station and watched ships from across the galaxy dock at the massive spaceport. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships of every shape and color moved through the docking bays like a slow dance of metal and light. Jake was 34 years old and had seen many battles before becoming a diplomat. His dark hair was cut short in military style and his blue eyes missed nothing. He wore the clean blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, but under the fancy clothes he was still a soldier. "Captain, the welcome ceremony starts in 1 hour," said Dr. Lisa Grant as she walked up beside him. Lisa was 29 with brown hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She loved studying alien cultures and always hoped for peace between different species. Her green eyes were bright with excitement. "I know, Lisa, I'm just watching our new neighbors," Jake said. He pointed to a crystal ship that looked like it was made of blue glass. "That's a Zilani vessel. They're 8 feet tall and strong enough to crush steel with their bare hands." A different ship caught Lisa's attention. It was dark and had too many legs sticking out from its sides. "And that ugly one?" "Kithera Hive ship. The bug people. They share one big mind between thousands of bodies. Very smart. But they think anyone with an individual mind is stupid." A third ship floated past them without making any sound. It seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing white and blue. "Vorthak energy beings," Jake explained. "They don't have real bodies like us. They can read minds and move things without touching them. They think anyone without psychic powers is worthless." Lisa frowned. "They all sound pretty impressive. No wonder they think humans are weak." Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Let them think that. It might be useful." The ceremony hall was enormous. Thousands of beings from different worlds filled the space. Jake and Lisa walked to their assigned seats near the front. As they moved through the crowd, Jake heard whispers and comments. "Look how small they are," said a Zilani in a voice like breaking glass. "No natural armor, no claws, no weapons on their bodies," added another. A group of Kithera clicked and buzzed to each other. One turned to look at the humans. "Single minds. So limited. How do they make decisions without a hive to guide them?" Jake kept walking and pretending he didn't hear. Lisa's face turned red with embarrassment, but she stayed quiet. They reached their seats just as the ceremony began. Commander Zekthai of the Zilani stepped up to speak first. He was massive, his crystal body catching the light and throwing rainbows across the hall. When he spoke, his voice boomed like thunder. "Today we welcome our newest members to the Galactic Federation. The humans of Earth have shown great skill in talking and making peace. They will be valuable for trade negotiations and cultural exchange." The way he said it made it clear that talking was all humans were good for. Hive Queen Nestka came next. She looked like a giant ant walking on 2 legs with 4 arms and black eyes that reflected no light. When she spoke, it sounded like 100 voices talking at once. The human mind is interesting in its isolation. Each human thinks alone, making them unpredictable but also weak. They cannot share knowledge instantly like proper civilized beings. However, their strange way of thinking may help solve simple problems. Jake's hands tightened into fists, but he kept his face calm. Finally, Energy Lord Vexmore floated to the speaking area. His body was just light and energy shaped like a tall, thin person. When he talked, his voice seemed to come from inside everyone's head. Humans have no psychic abilities worth mentioning. They cannot read thoughts, move objects with their minds, or sense the emotions of others. This makes them almost blind to the universe around them. But perhaps this limitation will help them focus on basic tasks. The ceremony continued with the formal welcome. Jake and Lisa were called forward to receive Earth's territory assignments. Jake wasn't surprised when he saw the map. Humans were given control of the safest, most boring sectors of space. Trade routes where nothing ever happened. Systems so peaceful that sending guards would be a waste. "The Kepler Expanse," announced Commander Zekthai. "A quiet region perfect for minor beginners. The humans will monitor merchant ships and provide assistance to travelers. Simple work that matches their abilities." Hive Queen Nestka added, "These sectors have been peaceful for centuries. No real military threats, no complex problems to solve. Ideal for a species still learning how the galaxy works." Energy Lord Vexmore's thoughts pressed into everyone's minds. The assignments reflect careful consideration of human limitations. We would not want to place them in situations requiring real strength or combat skills. Jake stood and accepted the assignment with a bow. "The people of Earth are honored to serve the Federation in any way we can." His words were polite and humble, just what the aliens expected to hear. But Lisa noticed something in his eyes that the aliens missed. Jake wasn't ashamed or disappointed. He looked like a hunter who had just seen his prey walk into a trap. After the ceremony, Jake and Lisa returned to their ship. The New Horizon didn't look like much compared to the alien vessels around it. It was gray and simple, with no crystal beauty or energy fields or organic curves, just plain human engineering. "I can't believe how they talked about us," Lisa said as they walked through the ship's corridors, "like we're children who need to be protected." "Good," Jake said. "Good?" "Jake, they think we're weak and stupid." Jake stopped walking and turned to face her. For a moment his diplomatic mask slipped and Lisa saw the soldier underneath. "Lisa, what do you see when you look at a rabbit?" "What? I don't understand." "A rabbit. Small, weak, no claws, no fangs. Just a harmless little animal that eats grass and runs away from danger." "Okay, yes. So? And what do you see when you look at a wolf?" "A predator. Strong, fast, dangerous," Jake nodded. "Right, now tell me, which one are humans more like?" Lisa opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She thought about human history, about all the wars and battles and the way humans had fought their way to the top of the food chain on Earth. "We're the wolves," she whispered. "That's right. And right now the galaxy thinks we're rabbits. They're so sure we're harmless that they're giving us access to everything. Trade routes, communication networks, star charts. They're telling us exactly where all their important stuff is located. But why would we want to know that? We're here for peace." Jake's smile was sharp. "We are here for peace. But peace has to be protected. And sometimes the best way to protect sheep is to let them think the wolves are just harmless dogs." As the New Horizon prepared to leave Nexus Station, Jake looked out at the alien ships one more time. They were beautiful and powerful and advanced. They were also about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one you never see coming. The ship's engines came online with a low hum. Soon they would reach their assigned sector and begin their simple patrol duties. Jake wondered how long it would take before the galaxy learned what humans really were. He hoped it would be a long time. The longer they stayed underestimated, the better they could do their real job, protecting everyone whether they wanted protection or not. 3 months had passed since the ceremony at Nexus Station. The New Horizon moved slowly through the Kepler expanse, checking on merchant ships and making sure the trade routes stayed safe. It was boring work, just like the aliens had planned. Lieutenant Danny Walsh stood next to Captain Morrison on the bridge. Danny was a thin man with sharp eyes, who had been a sniper in the Marines before joining the space fleet. He watched the screens that showed empty space around them. "Another day, another bunch of nothing," Danny said. "The most exciting thing we've seen was that broken cargo ship last week." "Don't complain," said Chief Engineer Amy Torres from her station. Amy was short and tough, with oil stains on her uniform and quick hands that could fix anything. "Boring is good." "Boring means nobody's shooting at us." Navigator Ben Clark looked up from his controls. Ben was the youngest officer on the ship, only 25, but he could fly through an asteroid field with his eyes closed. "Actually, I kind of miss the action. This place is so quiet it's creepy." Captain Morrison smiled. "Careful what you wish for, Ben. Action has a way of finding people who look for it." The ship's communication system made a soft beeping sound. Dr. Lisa Grant's voice came through the speakers from her lab. "Captain, we're getting a signal from Mining Station 7. They want to talk to us." "Put them on screen, Lisa." The main screen changed to show the inside of a mining station. A Zilani operator appeared, his crystal body reflecting the lights around him. Next to him stood 2 Zilani merchants, their bodies glowing with a soft blue light. "Human vessel, this is Station 7. We request assistance with our communication array. Some cables need to be replaced in a small maintenance tunnel." Lieutenant Walsh made a quiet snorting sound. "Let me guess. The tunnel is too small for 8-foot crystal people." Captain Morrison shot him a warning look. "We'll be happy to help, Station 7. We'll dock in 20 minutes. After the communication ended, Amy Torres shook her head. "They could use robots for that job. They just want to watch humans crawl around in tight spaces for their entertainment." "Maybe," Morrison said, "but we'll do it anyway. That's what good neighbors do." An hour later, Chief Torres was floating in a narrow tunnel inside the mining station, connecting new cables while the Zilani merchants watched. Morrison and the others stood nearby, listening to the aliens talk. "Look how small they are," said one merchant. "They fit in spaces where no real being could go." "It's useful, I suppose," said the other. like having trained animals to do simple tasks. The first merchant pointed at Lieutenant Walsh. That one carries a projectile weapon. How primitive. Does he think small metal bullets could hurt anyone important? I heard they practice fighting each other for fun, said the second merchant. They call it training, but what could creatures like that learn about real combat? Walsh's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Morrison caught his eye and shook his head. The lieutenant stepped back and kept quiet. Chief Torres finished her work and floated back out of the tunnel. All done. Your communications should work fine now. Excellent, said the first merchant. Perhaps you should stay and clean the rest of our maintenance tunnels. We could pay you in food scraps. Torres's face turned red, but she just nodded politely. We have other duties to attend to, but thank you for the offer. As they walked back to their ship, Torres muttered under her breath. Food scraps. I'd like to show them what this trained animal can do with a plasma torch. Easy, Amy, Morrison said. Let them think we're pets. It makes our job easier. What job? We haven't done anything but fix broken things and wave at cargo ships for 3 months. Morrison stopped walking and looked at his crew. Our job is to watch and learn. Every system we visit, every conversation we have, every star chart we see, we're mapping their defenses, their trade routes, their weak points, not to attack them, but to protect them when something else does. Navigator Clark frowned. Protect them from what? This sector hasn't seen conflict in centuries. That's what they think, Morrison said. But space is big and old. Lots of things sleep in the dark between stars. Someday something is going to wake up. They returned to the new horizon and continued their patrol. Days passed quietly, with only routine traffic and normal merchant ships. The crew settled into their boring routine of watching and waiting. Then Ben Clark noticed something strange on his long-range sensors. Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature at the edge of sensor range. It's big and it's moving fast. Morrison came to look at the readings. How big? Bigger than anything in our database. And the energy pattern doesn't match any known ship type. Dr. Grant joined them on the bridge. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Maybe a comet or asteroid with unusual mineral content? Ben shook his head. No, sir. This thing is definitely artificial, and it's heading straight for the Centauri Trade Hub. The Centauri Trade Hub was home to 3 million beings from dozens of different species. It was the biggest commercial center in this part of the galaxy, completely undefended because everyone knew the area was safe. How long until it reaches the hub? Morrison asked. At current speed, about 18 hours. Morrison felt ice form in his stomach. Open a channel to Galactic Command. Priority alert. The communication screen showed a Zilani officer at a desk covered with glowing crystal displays. He looked bored and annoyed. Human vessel, you are not scheduled for a report until next week. What is the nature of your message? Commander, we've detected a large unknown object moving toward Centauri. Hub, request immediate investigation and possible evacuation of civilian population. The Zilani officer's crystal face somehow managed to look even more bored. Impossible. Our sensors show nothing unusual in that sector. Your equipment must be malfunctioning. Sir, I'm certain of these readings. This object is massive and definitely not natural. Human, your species has been in space for less than a century. Perhaps you should learn to properly operate your instruments before making wild claims. Dr. Grant stepped forward. Commander, if there's even a small chance we're right, shouldn't you at least check? Dr. Grant, is it? I have read your file. Your species is known for seeing patterns that do not exist and panicking over imaginary threats. This is clearly another example of human irrationality. The screen went dark. The Zilani had ended the communication. Well, that went well, Lieutenant Walsh said. Morrison stared at the sensor display. The energy signature was still there, still moving toward Centauri Hub. But as they watched, something impossible happened. The signal vanished. Ben, what happened? Did we lose sensor contact? Navigator Clark checked his instruments twice. No, sir. The object just disappeared. Like someone turned off a switch. That's not possible, Dr. Grant said. Something that big can't just become invisible. Unless it was designed to, Morrison said quietly. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone understood what the captain was thinking. Something big and unknown was heading for a defenseless civilian target. It could hide itself from sensors, and the galactic authorities refused to believe it existed. Captain, what are our orders? Asked Lieutenant Walsh. Morrison looked at his crew. They were supposed to be simple peacekeepers in a safe sector. They weren't supposed to face unknown threats or make decisions that could affect millions of lives. But they were humans, and humans had never been very good at following orders when innocent people were in danger. Set course for Centauri Hub, best speed. We're going to take a closer look. Sir, that's outside our assigned patrol area, Dr. Grant said. I know. Log it as a navigation error. Sometimes human instruments malfunction and take us to the wrong place. Chief Torres grinned from her station. I love it when our equipment malfunctions. The New Horizon changed course and accelerated toward Centauri Hub. Behind them, empty space looked peaceful and safe. But Morrison knew that somewhere in the darkness something was hunting. And the only thing standing between it and 3 million innocent people was one small human ship that everyone thought was weak. He hoped the galaxy was right about humans being harmless, because if they were wrong, if humans really were dangerous, then whatever was hiding in the dark was about to learn exactly how dangerous they could be. The New Horizon drifted through the asteroid field where the unknown signal had vanished. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching the screens show nothing but rocks and empty space. But his instincts told him something was very wrong here. Anything, Ben? He asked Navigator Clark. Ben shook his head. No energy readings, no metal signatures, no movement. It's like whatever we detected just never existed. But we all saw it, said Dr. Grant. The sensors don't lie. Lieutenant Walsh pointed to a large asteroid ahead of them. Wait a minute. Look at that rock. Something's off about it. Chief Torres brought up a detailed scan. Danny's right. The surface temperature is wrong. That asteroid should be frozen solid, but parts of it are almost warm. Morrison felt his soldier instincts wake up. Amy, can you get us closer without making noise? Sure thing, Captain. Drifting in nice and quiet. As they moved closer, the asteroid looked more and more wrong. The surface had strange marks on it, like huge scratches or burn patterns, and there was something that definitely didn't belong. That's not natural rock formation, Dr. Grant whispered. Look at the smooth sections. Those are metal. The asteroid wasn't an asteroid at all. It was a ship bigger than anything they had ever seen. Ancient beyond measure, covered with millions of years of space dust and small rocks. But underneath all that, something was stirring. Captain Ben said in a tight voice, I'm reading power fluctuations from inside that thing. Whatever it is, it's waking up. Morrison felt ice in his veins. Red alert. Battle stations. Amy, can we get a message to Centauri Hub? Already trying, sir. But something's jamming our communications. The ancient ship began to move. Dust and small rocks fell away from its surface as massive engines came online. The ship was at least 10 miles long, shaped like a twisted knife made of black metal. Strange symbols covered its hull, glowing with sick green light. Oh God, Dr. Grant breathed. What is that thing? They got their answer when the ship's cargo bays opened. Thousands of small objects poured out like angry insects. Each one was about the size of a car with multiple legs and glowing red eyes. They moved through space without rockets or engines, somehow propelling themselves toward the distant lights of Centauri Hub. Scanning the small craft, Amy reported. They're robots of some kind. Old technology, but still functional. And, Captain, they're self-replicating. They're already starting to build more of themselves from the asteroids around them. Morrison watched the swarm grow larger as it consumed everything in its path. Each robot that ate enough matter split into 2 robots. The swarm was doubling in size every few minutes. We have to warn the hub, he said. Still jammed, sir, but I'm trying to punch through with an emergency signal. Finally, Amy managed to connect with Centauri Trade Hub. The screen showed Station Director Yalthun, a tall Zalani with blue crystal skin who looked very annoyed. Human vessel, you are in violation of your patrol assignment. Return to your designated sector immediately. Director, you need to evacuate the station right now. There's a massive robot swarm heading your way. Yalthun's crystal face showed disbelief. Impossible. Our sensors detect no threats in this system. Your sensors can't see them because they're jamming communications and hiding their energy signatures. Please just look at the outer sensor grid. Human, I will not panic my population based on the fevered imagination of a species known for seeing monsters in shadows. Return to your patrol route or face disciplinary action. The communication ended. Director Yalthun had cut them off. Stubborn crystal head, Lieutenant Walsh muttered. Morrison watched the swarm continue growing and moving toward the hub. How long until they reach the station? At current speed, about 2 hours, Ben reported. And how long for the hub to evacuate 3 million people? Dr. Grant ran quick calculations. with every available ship working together? At least 6 hours. And that's if they start right now. The math was simple and terrible. The robot swarm would reach Centauri Hub long before the civilians could escape, and the people in charge refused to believe the danger was real. "Captain, what do we do?" asked Chief Torres. Morrison looked at his small crew on their small ship. They were just 5 humans in a sector of space where humans were considered weak and unimportant. Nobody would listen to their warnings. Nobody would believe their reports, but 3 million innocent people were about to die. "We do what humans do," Morrison said. "We stand between the monsters and the people who can't protect themselves." "Sir, with respect, we're one ship against thousands of those robot things," Walsh pointed out. "I know the odds, Danny, but maybe we can slow them down. Give the hub time to see what's coming and start evacuating." The swarm was getting closer to the trade routes now. A small merchant ship appeared on their sensors, heading toward the hub with a cargo of medical supplies. "Oh no," Dr. Grant whispered. They watched in horror as the robot swarm surrounded the merchant ship. The vessel tried to run, but the robots were faster. They attached themselves to the hull like space piranhas and began tearing the ship apart. Within minutes, nothing was left but scattered metal and more robots than before. "They're learning," Amy said with fear in her voice. "Each ship they destroy teaches them more about our technology." A Kithera hive ship arrived to investigate the disturbance. It was a massive vessel with thousands of bug-like beings sharing one collective mind. The ship sent out fighter craft to engage the robot swarm. The fighters didn't stand a chance. The robots swarmed over them like ants, learning their weapons and tactics in seconds. The hive ship itself lasted longer, but the outcome was inevitable. The collective screams of the dying Kithera echoed through space before cutting off suddenly. Now the swarm was twice as large and armed with Kithera bioweapons. "Captain, we're getting an emergency signal from the hub," Ben reported. "They're finally seeing what's on their outer sensors." The screen showed Director Yal Thun again, but this time his crystal face showed pure terror. Behind him, alarms were going off and Zilani workers were running in panic. "Human vessel. The defense grid is gone. Something destroyed our outer stations in minutes. I tried to warn you, Director. How long until you can evacuate?" 4 hours minimum. But our defense fleet is already launching to stop these things. Morrison watched the hub's defense ships move out to meet the swarm. They were brave and well-armed, with advanced Zilani crystal weapons and Vorthak energy shields. Against any normal enemy they would have been unstoppable, but the robot swarm wasn't normal. It had been built by a civilization that had mastered warfare before Earth's sun was born. The defense fleet lasted exactly 12 minutes. "Director, you need to start evacuating now," Morrison said. "Use every ship you have. Don't worry about cargo or profits. Just get people out, but how can we stop them? Our weapons are useless." Morrison looked at his crew. They were scared but determined. They had signed up to explore space and make friends with aliens, not to fight ancient robot armies. But they were humans, and humans had a long history of doing impossible things when innocent people needed help. "We'll figure something out," Morrison said. "Just start the evacuation." The New Horizon turned toward the approaching swarm. It was like watching a mouse challenge a pack of wolves. But the mouse had something the wolves didn't expect. It had the cunning of a species that had fought its way to the top of the food chain through intelligence, teamwork, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. "Amy, I need you to look at our weapons systems. Not how they're supposed to work, but how we can make them work differently." "Already on it, Captain. I've got some ideas that the designers definitely didn't intend." "Ben, start plotting courses through the asteroid field. I want options that no sane pilot would ever consider." "Define insane, sir. Because I'm thinking of some really stupid things to do with this ship." "Danny, break out the emergency weapons locker. All of it. Even the experimental stuff. The gear that's not supposed to exist?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Especially that stuff." Dr. Grant looked confused. "What experimental gear? I thought we were a diplomatic vessel." Lieutenant Walsh grinned as he headed for the weapons locker. "Lisa, there's something you need to understand about human diplomacy. We prefer to negotiate from a position of strength. The robot swarm was an hour away from Centauri Hub now. 3 million people were trying to escape in ships that weren't fast enough. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had tried to stop the ancient machines and failed. Now it was up to one small human ship that everyone thought was harmless. Morrison hoped they were wrong about that. The New Horizon moved through the asteroid field like a predator stalking its prey. But this time, The human ship was the smaller predator facing something much bigger and deadlier. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching the robot swarm approach. Thousands of metal spiders moved through space, each one learning and adapting from every ship they destroyed. Behind them, the ancient mothership followed like a black wound in space. "Amy, report on weapon modifications," Morrison said. Chief Torres wiped oil from her hands and grinned. "Well, the good news is I've turned our entire ship into a weapon. The bad news is we'll probably blow ourselves up if we're not careful." "Define careful." "Using any of this stuff more than once." Lieutenant Walsh emerged from the weapons locker, carrying equipment that definitely wasn't standard diplomatic gear. His arms were full of compact assault rifles, plasma charges, and devices that hummed with dangerous energy. "Danny, what exactly are we carrying on this ship?" Dr. Grant asked. "Everything," Walsh replied. "Turns out our diplomatic mission was just the cover story. This ship has enough firepower to level a small moon." Morrison activated the ship's internal communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. What I'm about to tell you is classified, but given our situation, you need to know the truth." He took a deep breath. "The New Horizon isn't just a diplomatic vessel. Every human ship in the fleet is designed for combat. Every human crew member is a trained soldier. We came to the galaxy in peace, but we came prepared for war." Dr. Grant stared at him. "You're saying our entire first contact program was a lie?" "Not a lie, Lisa. A strategy. We assessed the galactic situation and decided that being underestimated was safer than being feared. Every species we met was stronger than us in some way. So we let them think we were weak while we learned their strengths and weaknesses. But why? Why deceive them? Because someone has to protect them. Look around you, Lisa. The Zilani are strong but inflexible. The Cathara are smart but can't think as individuals. The Vorthak have psychic powers but no understanding of physical warfare. They're all powerful, but they're specialists. Humans are generalists. We adapt." Navigator Clark looked up from his controls. "Captain, the swarm just changed course. They're moving faster now and they're heading straight for us. They detected us. I think they're learning from the ships they destroyed. They know human vessels are different now." Morrison smiled coldly. "Good. Let's give them a lesson they won't forget. Amy, activate the combat modifications." Chief Torres's hands flew over her controls. Throughout the ship, hidden panels slid open to reveal weapon systems that had been disguised as diplomatic equipment. The ship's hull shifted and changed as armor plating moved into position. What had looked like a peaceful exploration vessel now clearly showed its true nature as a warship. "Ben, take us into the asteroid field. I want those rocks between us and the swarm." "Yes, sir. Plotting a course that violates several laws of physics and common sense. That's my boy." The New Horizon dove into the densest part of the asteroid field, moving at speeds that would be suicide for most pilots. But Ben Clark had trained for this his entire life, flying through obstacle courses that would terrify alien pilots. The robot swarm followed, but the asteroid slowed them down. They had to break apart to navigate around the large rocks, which made them vulnerable. "Amy, are those pulse charges ready?" "Ready and waiting, Captain. But remember, we can only use them once. Once is all we need. Danny, deploy the hunter-killer drones." Small objects shot out from the New Horizon's hull, no bigger than footballs but packed with human technology. They looked primitive compared to alien gear, but that was the point. The robot swarm tried to analyze the drones and couldn't understand how they worked. "The drones are in position," Walsh reported. "They're confused by our technology. It's too different from what they've learned to process." "Perfect. Amy, trigger the pulse charges." The asteroids around them suddenly erupted with electromagnetic energy. Chief Torres had hidden explosive devices throughout the field, each one designed to disrupt electronic systems. The robot swarm found themselves blind and confused as their sensors went dead. "Now, Ben, take us through the gap." Navigator Clark sent the ship diving through a narrow canyon between two huge asteroids. It was a space so tight that touching either wall would destroy them, but it put them behind the robot swarm. "Danny, light them up." The New Horizon opened fire with weapons that no diplomatic ship should have possessed. Plasma cannons that had been disguised as communication arrays, missile launchers hidden inside cargo bays, and energy weapons that violated 3 different galactic treaties. But the most effective weapons were the simplest ones. Human projectile. Weapons that fired simple metal bullets were so primitive that the robot swarm couldn't understand them. While the ancient machines tried to analyze human gunpowder technology, the bullets tore through their hulls. "They're adapting," Dr. Grant called out. "The ones in the back are learning from the ones we're destroying." "Then we don't give them time to learn," Morrison said. "Amy, prep the ramming charge." Chief Torres's eyes went wide. "Captain, that's our own hull you're talking about using as a weapon." "I know. Ben, can you get us close to their mothership?" "Sir, that thing is 10 miles long and covered with weapons." "I didn't ask if it was safe, I asked if you could do it." Ben's hands moved over his controls. "Hold on to something." The New Horizon accelerated toward the ancient mothership, using the robot swarm's own confusion against them. The small, human vessel weaved between massive weapons that were designed to fight other capital ships, not something as small and fast as their target. "Amy, I need you to do something that's probably impossible," Morrison said. "My favorite kind of assignment. Can you use our computer virus against their systems?" "Captain, their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours. That's exactly why it might work. Their systems are designed to interface with advanced technology. Ours is so primitive it might act like poison in their networks." Chief Torres grinned. "I love this job. Give me 5 minutes." The New Horizon dodged massive energy beams while Torres worked frantically at her station. She was uploading every piece of human software she could find into a single data package, everything from navigation programs to entertainment files. "Ready, Captain. But I have no idea what this will do to their ship." "Only one way to find out. Ben, get us to their main computer core." "The computer core is in the center of the ship. We'd have to go through about 5 miles of armor and weapons." Morrison looked at his crew. They were scared but determined, ready to sacrifice themselves to save 3 million innocent people. It was the most human thing he'd ever seen. "Then that's what we do. All power to engines and forward shields. We're going in." The New Horizon accelerated toward the mothership's hull. Ancient weapons tried to target them, but the human ship was too small and too fast. They punched through the outer armor like a bullet through paper. Inside the alien ship, corridors designed for creatures that had been dead for millions of years stretched out around them. Emergency lights flickered as the ancient vessel tried to deal with the intruder in its heart. "Amy, upload the virus now." Chief Torres connected their computer systems to the alien network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began going off throughout the mothership as human software spread through systems that had never encountered anything so chaotic and unpredictable. The ancient ship began to shudder as its perfectly organized systems tried to process human code. It was like feeding random noise to a brain that had only known perfect order. "It's working," Dr. Grant shouted. "The robot swarm is losing coordination." Outside, thousands of robot spiders began flying in circles or attacking each other as their command signals became scrambled. The mothership's weapons stopped firing as its targeting systems crashed under the weight of human inefficiency. "Ben, get us out of here before this whole thing explodes." Navigator Clark sent them racing back through the corridors they had entered, dodging falling debris as the ancient ship began tearing itself apart. They burst back into space just as the mothership's power core went critical. The explosion lit up the entire asteroid field. When the light faded, nothing remained of the robot swarm except scattered metal fragments. The New Horizon drifted. In space, its hull scarred and its systems barely functioning, but they were alive, and 3 million people at Centauri Hub were safe. "Well," Chief Torres said into the silence, "that was fun. Can we do it again?" Captain Morrison laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge. "Amy, you're completely insane." "Thank you, sir. I do my best." Dr. Grant looked around at her crewmates with new understanding. "You're all soldiers, all of you, and you've been pretending to be diplomats this whole time. The best diplomacy happens when people know you could destroy them but choose not to," Morrison explained. "Now the galaxy will learn what humans really are." "And what are we?" Morrison smiled. "We're the species that stands between the dark and the light. We're the ones who fight the monsters so others don't have to. We're human. In the distance, ships from Centauri Hub were approaching to help with rescue operations. Soon word would spread throughout the galaxy about what they had witnessed. The small, weak humans had done something. The rescue ships from Centauri Hub found the New Horizon drifting among the wreckage of the ancient robot swarm. The human vessel was badly damaged with hull breaches and failing life support, but it was still intact. More importantly, its crew was alive and working to save survivors from the destroyed alien ships. Captain Morrison floated in a damaged section of the ship, helping Chief Torres weld emergency patches over holes in the hull. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see alien rescue workers staring at them in shock. "Captain," Lieutenant Walsh called over the communication system, "you need to see this. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy." Morrison made his way back to the bridge where Dr. Grant was monitoring communications from dozens of different worlds. Her face was pale as she read the incoming transmissions. "What's the word from home?" Morrison asked. "Admiral Kane is on his way with the real fleet," Grant replied. "Estimated arrival in 6 hours. But Jake, that's not the interesting part. Listen to this." She played a recording from the Zilani High Council. Commander Zekthai's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different now. Where before he had spoken with casual superiority, now there was something that might have been respect. To the human vessel, New Horizon, and her crew. The Zilani Council acknowledges that our previous assessment of human capabilities was incomplete. We request immediate consultation on defensive strategies for our outer colonies. Another message followed, this one from the Cathera Collective. Hive Queen Nestka's buzzing voice filled the bridge. Human minds proved more efficient than predicted. Individual thinking patterns created solutions that Hive Mind could not anticipate. The Cathara Collective wishes to establish military cooperation agreements with human forces. A third message came from the Vorthak Energy Council. Energy Lord Vexmore's thoughts pressed into their minds, but the tone was completely different from before. Humans demonstrated capabilities beyond psychic measurement. Physical strength and mental adaptability exceeded all projections. The Vorthak Council requests human advisors for planetary defense systems. Navigator Clark looked up from his station. "Captain, there are 47 similar messages here. Every major power in the galaxy wants to know how we did what we did, and they're all asking the same question." Dr. Grant added, "They want to know if humans have been lying about being weak." Morrison sat down in his captain's chair and looked at his crew. They were exhausted, injured, and their ship was barely holding together, but they had saved 3 million lives and changed the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. "What do we tell them, Jake?" Torres asked. Before Morrison could answer, the main screen activated to show Director Yalthun from Centauri Hub. The tall Zilani looked very different from their last conversation. His crystal body was dimmed with something that might have been shame. "Captain Morrison, on behalf of 3 million grateful beings, I must thank you for saving our lives, but I must also ask, what are humans really?" Morrison thought carefully before answering. "Director, humans are exactly what we told you we were. We're explorers, diplomats, and peacekeepers. We came to the galaxy hoping to make friends and learn from other cultures. But your ship, your weapons, your tactics, none of that was in any of our intelligence reports about humanity. That's because you never asked the right questions. You saw that we were physically smaller than Zilani and assumed we were weak. You noticed we didn't have hive minds like the Cathara and decided we were stupid. You observed our lack of psychic powers and concluded we were inferior to the Vorthak." Director Yalthun's crystal face showed confusion, but those assessments were logical based on available data. They were logical but incomplete. You measured us against your own strengths instead of trying to understand our different strengths. Humans aren't strong like Zilani, but we're adaptable. We don't share minds like Cathera, but we think independently and creatively. We don't have psychic powers like Vorthak, but we build tools and weapons and machines. Dr. Grant stepped forward. "Director, humans have been fighting and surviving for millions of years on a world full of predators. We learned to use our brains instead of our muscles, to work together instead of alone, and to turn our weaknesses into advantages." "You deceived us," Yalthun said, but without anger. "No," Morrison replied firmly. "We let you deceive yourselves. When you saw our simple technology, you called it primitive instead of efficient. When you saw our individual thinking, you called it chaotic instead of creative. When you saw our willingness to take risks, you called it reckless instead of brave. A new voice joined the conversation as Admiral Rex Kane appeared on the screen. The grizzled human commander looked exactly like what he was, a career military officer who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "Director, if I may," Kane said. "Humans didn't lie about our nature. We told you we were peacekeepers, and that's exactly what we are. But peace isn't free. Someone has to be willing to fight for it." "Admiral Kane," Yalthun said, "your fleet has been detected entering our system. Are we under invasion?" Kane laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Director, if we wanted to invade, we would have done it 3 months ago when you gave us detailed maps of all your trade routes, defense stations, and population centers. We're here to help clean up the mess and establish proper defensive perimeters." The truth of Kane's words hit the alien like a physical blow. The galaxy's 3 major powers had spent months telling humans exactly where all their important assets were located, confident that the weak newcomers posed no threat. "How many ships do you have?" Yalthun asked quietly. "Enough," Kane replied. "But that's not the important question. The important question is what we do with them." Morrison stood up from his chair. "Admiral, request permission to address the galactic community." "Granted, Captain. You've earned the right to speak for humanity." Morrison turned back to Director Yalthun. "Director, I want you to send a message to every government in the galaxy. Tell them that Earth requests a new diplomatic conference." "What will you discuss?" "The truth. That humans are not weak, but we're not conquerors either. We're protectors. There are threats in this galaxy that none of our species can face alone. Ancient machines like the ones we just defeated, rogue AI systems, stellar phenomena that could destroy entire worlds. The universe is dangerous, and we need to work together to survive it." Energy Lord Vexmore materialized on the bridge of the New Horizon, his form glowing with psychic energy. "Human Morrison, your species has hidden its true nature for months. How can we trust anything you say now?" Morrison met the energy being's gaze directly. "Because we had the power to conquer you and chose not to. Because we had the opportunity to let you die and chose to save you instead. Because when the monsters came out of the dark, we stood between them and innocent people without being asked." "And what do humans want in return for this protection?" "The same thing we've always wanted. To explore the galaxy, learn from other cultures, and make sure that when something terrible comes out of the dark again, we're all ready to face it together." Chief Torres limped onto the bridge, her uniform torn and her face covered with grease and blood. "Captain, we've got life support back online and the hull patches are holding. We're ready for the trip home." "Home?" asked Dr. Grant. Morrison smiled. "Earth to report to command, and then back out here to do our job, which is protecting people who can't protect themselves. Watching for threats that others might miss. Standing guard so that brilliant scientists like the Zilani can build their crystal cities, so that cooperative minds like the Cathera can share their knowledge, and so that wise energy beings like the Vorthak can explore the mysteries of the universe." Admiral Kane nodded approvingly. "Well said, Captain. The fleet will establish permanent patrol bases throughout this sector. We'll work with local authorities to set up early warning systems and rapid response protocols." Director Yalthun was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral Captain Morrison, I must ask, are humans warriors or peacemakers?" Morrison and Kane looked at each other and smiled. "Yes," they said together. Over the following weeks, the galaxy slowly came to understand what humans really were. Not the weak newcomers they had appeared to be, but apex predators who chose to hunt monsters instead of prey. Not primitive barbarians, but sophisticated strategists who had assessed the galactic situation and positioned themselves perfectly to protect everyone. The Zilani began asking human military advisors to help design defense systems. The Cathera started studying human individual thinking patterns to complement their hive mind strategies. The Vorthak began working with human engineers to combine psychic powers with physical technology, and throughout the galaxy, human ships took up positions in the dark spaces between stars, watching and waiting for the next threat to emerge from the ancient depths of space. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the rebuilt New Horizon as it prepared to depart for the Outer Rim territories. These were dangerous regions where few ships dared to travel, perfect for a species that the galaxy finally understood was anything but weak. "Ready for departure?" "Captain," Navigator Clark reported, "take us out." "Ben, we have work to do." The ship turned toward the stars, carrying its crew toward whatever